We're going exploring in the treacherous dungeon. This is our review of Tiny Epic Dungeons.
Tiny Epic Dungeons is a cooperative dungeon crawler where players are exploring the dungeon and trying to defeat the dungeon boss. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a tough game.
Some games are easy, some games are difficult. This one's near impossible to beat. We'll tell you all about it after this quick how to play.
The game is played in 2 acts, with players exploring and fighting minions in the first act, and fighting the dungeon boss in Act 2.
Each player will take on the role of a hero that has different strengths and abilities that will let them perform different actions.
As players explore the dungeon, they will reveal traps, goblins, and minions as they search for the boss's entrance.
After defeating the minions, the players must defeat the dungeon boss by getting him into the ritual rooms and attacking him with supreme spells and legendary loot.
If the players cannot defeat the minions in Act 1 before their torch goes out, or defeat the dungeon boss in Act 2, they lose.
If the players manage to defeat the dungeon boss before the end of Act 2, they win. We were sent a copy of Tiny Epic Dungeons from Gamelyn Games so that we could do this review video, so thank you for sending it to us.
Before you go off hunting monsters, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. All your likes and subscribes really help our channel grow, so thank you.
As with all of the Tiny Epic universe type games, this one has amazing production value, even though it's small. If this was any bigger, you'd see it in one of those big boxes, be hundreds of dollars, take up all the table space, but they took it all, they shrunk it down. So it's still an epic game. It still lives up to that Tiny Epic moniker. And you can see that all the minis are really cool. They're still really cool, even though it's the small box. I remember when we did the unboxing, we saw these, we're like, oh, all this stuff fits into this tiny box. So the production value is still top notch.
The artwork is great. It really gives that fantasy, epic-ish, like you're going on a journey, defeat bosses. One thing I really like are just these minis, right? They're like a neutral color, so anyone who's really into painting minis, yeah, these are ready for you to just prime and go to town.
The general mechanics of the game are pretty straightforward. In Act 1, you're building the dungeon, you're crawling through the dungeon, exploring it. You're gonna come across traps that you have to defeat. You're gonna come across goblins that will attack you if you don't defeat them. And you're searching for the minions. You have to defeat the minions before you can go to the epic dungeon boss. And of course, you have to find the dungeon boss's door so that you can then go to it. So there's a lot of steps that you have to do in Act 1, which makes it extremely difficult. None of the steps by themselves are that difficult. However, the fact that you have to do all of them before moving on to Act 2 makes Act 1 really hard. And every time you go into another room, it's like, oh, it's another trap. Surprise, surprise. Oh, it's another goblin. Another thing I have to attack. Oh, there's the minion. And now it's killing me. Oh, okay, great. Oh, well, look, we found the door, but we're never gonna go through that door.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance of like, hey, let's find the boss's door, but not too fast, because if you do, like he said, traps, goblins, more minions, if you go too fast, they'll just overwhelm you, and then you're like, well, I'm unconscious, now it's my turn, now I'm rested. Oh, you know what, they just attacked, now I'm unconscious. And you can never really do anything. I think that was our worst fears, please just go kill him, don't let him come after me.
But you still have to move quickly because there is a countdown. The torch moves at the end of each player's action. So there's that constant countdown clock of, we only have so many moves left before we die, so we need to accomplish these things. Otherwise, we're never gonna make it into Act 2. And when you get down to 3 or 4 turns left and you can see that you still have a lot to do, you're like, oh, we're dead, so we're not even gonna bother.
I will say that learning the iconography, the symbols, and learning the rules, it's intermediate to difficult because there's always this wait, so what does this mean now? Because it could mean something a little bit different, like if you're in a different situation. So always having to go okay, all right, it does that, okay. And then having to explain it to everyone, that can make the game go a little bit slower and just confuse everyone if it's their first time playing.
There's also a lot of luck of the draw in this game. There's a lot of luck of the draw in Tiny Epic Zombies and Tiny Epic Dinosaurs as well, but I feel like this one is make or break. If you have really bad draws, like 1 or 2 really bad draws, game over for this one. So you really need to have luck on your side. That's probably the only way that you can actually win this game, is if you have the perfect shuffle of all the cards, all the loot cards, all the spell cards, all the demon cards, all the minion card, everything is just total perfect for you. That's the only way you're actually gonna win this. So because of that, as you're playing, like, oh, I have this really cool hero, but none of my loot or none of my spells do anything for that hero. So it's kind of pointless, and I wasted all these turns doing all these things, and nothing's combining to actually make me feel like I'm accomplishing anything.
Yeah, because everything is so weighted heavily in luck, you gotta make sure you're lucky enough to build the dungeon right. You gotta make sure your rolls are lucky enough, because if you attack a monster and they roll their monster dice, just that roll on the dice could cause the torch to go down too that you didn't even plan for. After that, then your turn's over, then the torch moves even closer. So it's just a lot of things are working against you. And losing the first like 2 or 3 times, you're thinking, okay, yeah, I think I got it. But then the 4th and 5th time and the 6th time, and then you go online and you're reading and you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me. It's not that I don't get it.
All of the attacking in this game is done through dice rolling, which I'm not a big fan of dice rolling. However, there is a way to mitigate it. You have the lightning bolts on your card, and you can use the lightning bolts to then move your dice to different numbers, and then you can change your numbers. So for example, if I had this, I'd get +2. So I can increase or decrease my dice depending on if I have this +2 or not. So I actually kind of like how they designed the dice for this game. I'm not so offended by the dice rolling in this. I felt like none of the battles were that difficult. However, there was just so many battles that you didn't have enough time to do everything. It just overwhelmed you with so much stuff that you have to do. It's like so many side quests before you can finally get to that final action that you just didn't have time to finish it.
Very rarely did we get to Act 2 and finally see the boss, but once you see the boss, it kind of scales how many players are playing. Their hit points are dependent on the number of players and number of minions that you've killed. It can make it a little bit difficult. However, I seem to think that the more the merrier, and you can just kind of whittle down the boss like pretty quickly as long as everyone's got like super cool gear or the legendary sets. Overall, I love the production value, I love the pieces, everything packed into one tiny box. It's very fun because you can just keep playing, explore the dungeon, even by yourself. You can just play as the different classes and characters, so I think that's really fun. What I didn't like is losing so many times. It's very hard to mitigate that. You could have the perfect strategy, but there's just so much luck that it's like, well, okay, I'm done. So for that, I'd probably give this game like a 4.5, 5.
Overall, it's great production value. It looks like a tiny epic game. It looks like it could be a much bigger game. There's a lot of mechanics and a lot of theming going on here that I really enjoy, and I wish that it could have been just tweaked a little bit just to make it more fun so that while you're playing, it's like, okay, yeah, we're enjoying it. Let's get to Act 2. Let's do the, yeah. And let's really have some fun with this game. Because there's so much cool stuff, it gets higher points, but because I feel so, I don't really want to play this game anymore, I'm also gonna give it a 5. And that was our review of Tiny Epic Dungeons.
What'd you think? Are you ready to dice roll with the punches and beat this game? Let us know in the comments below.
Thank you once again to Gamelyn Games for sending us a copy so that we could do this review. If you'd like to buy a copy, check out the link in our description below. And if you're enjoying our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny. Now go party like a board gamer.